don't think this was a skit of Keir Starmer in number 10. We think this was actually achieved by tapping into some CCTV cameras. This was liked by Donald Trump and sent to billions. Take it away, Sir Keir.
Oh, golly. Well, what if Donald shouts at me? What do I say, Lammy?
Just be yourself, Prime Minister. Yourself is who everyone likes.
Hello? Oh, sod that scary, scary, wonderful president. Why is he so blubber difficult to talk to?
Sir, just be honest and tell him we can't send any more ships to the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, crumbs. I just hate conflict so much.
Are you referring to the war or this phone call?
Isn't there a way I can not do both? I just want to keep him happy, Lammy. You don't understand him like I do. I can change him.
It is absolutely amazing. The bigger one is on YouTube. Let's cross to LA. She's had a swig of juice. There she's got a gin and tonic up. Good morning, Kinsey Schofield. I saw you waving the can. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I was just accused of drinking an alcoholic beverage, and I had to confirm that it was bottled water.
Listen, try living in this country. I'd be on the gin about 5 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't worry about that, my darling. What did you make of the skit on Saturday Night Live about Starmer? That was massive.
Oh, my gosh. If I were this cast, I would be so proud of myself. Yeah. You are already being shared by President Trump, who is just, first of all, he is notoriously funny himself, which, you know, like him or love him, he's made some pretty great jokes in the past. And I just think that they must be on cloud nine. This must be a huge win for them because it was very funny. It was very funny. Welcome to breakfast. I hope you've had a good weekend. Let's talk royals. Let's talk America, but let's start with the royals. Andrew Mountbatten, well, Andy. Honestly, I was talking to some of the guys from The Sun the other day, and of course everybody's been waiting for that first picture. The last picture was this one, in the back of the car, being driven out of prison, looking slightly dodgy. He went to walk his dog at the weekend, and that's front page news. Seriously, what becomes of this human being? He can't do anything. He can't go anywhere. Nobody wants anything to do with him. I mean, what's the point? I mean, what becomes of him? I don't think we should be seeing him walking his dogs. I mean, I'm under the impression that he probably doesn't have the help, but these are not the pictures that the King and Prince William want out there when they're trying to do everything in their power to bury this embarrassment. So what becomes of him? I think he just has to shrivel off and disappear, but I don't think that Andrew and Fergie are capable of that. It's my understanding that he's already scheming in foreign countries trying to figure out how he can make a buck and how he could, you know, finance his new lifestyle. And the same for her. She's been around America hawking her life story. I mean, you know, the duplicity, the lies, and how much this has come back to bite them. You would understand, you know, a lot of people said, Kins, a couple of weeks ago, oh, what about his mental health? What if the guy sees now a way out and tries to kill himself? And I'm being completely straight. But everybody just piled in on me and went, now, hold on a second. He's far too egotistical for that. I don't know the bloke, but, you know, he hasn't been apologetic. He doesn't seem to have understood the horrendous nature of I'm going to say a friendship with the most notorious paedophile in the land, in the world, it seems, and no contrition at all. And some of the other people, like in the States, that now, are they lying? Are the Clintons lying? Is President Trump lying about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know, but they handled it a lot better. I mean, they certainly created much more of a distance than Andrew even, like, Andrew told us he had to go to New York to break up with this friend. We learned later that that was a bold-faced lie, and he continued to communicate with him. But there is a shamelessness about him, a complete lack of regret. And I think that people really resent that. And he's going to
continue to be the villain. So he just needs to disappear.
I completely agree. And we had lots of people phoning the show saying, hold on a second, we're talking about a life in exile. He's got a chef, he's got a valet, and he does bugger all day. And I think as times in both countries become harder and harder, I think those who are privileged and behave so appallingly, the light will be shone at them. Lots of other stuff I want to rush through with you. Where do you want to go? Prince William or Meghan Markle? Your pick.
Well, are we not going to acknowledge that Fergie pitched a show where she clones the Queen's dogs?
I don't understand this story at all. What is this
My
story?
God. I mean, that's such an American reality show, though. I mean, truly, that is such an American reality show. And the idea that she had this relationship with the Queen and that's why she was left with the Queen's corgis. No, the Queen did not. After her last corgi died, she said, I don't want any more corgis because I don't want to outlive my corgis. Then Prince Philip passed away, and Andrew and Fergie forced these puppies on her after she said, I'm a dog mom. I have 4. I would be very upset about the idea of leaving my dogs behind. They were given these dogs back because the Queen specifically instructed them she didn't want these corgis. And now, allegedly, according to The Sun, she is pitching a show where she breeds the corgis. You yourself can have one of the Queen's corgis, or she clones the corgis. And it is just so very American. And I'm proud to be an American. But I really hope that this show doesn't come to fruition.
This will probably make the papers. I don't usually do it. Do you want to hear a story from the old man? Dead, obviously, but 41 years for the Queen Mother as her private secretary, and it involves the corgi. Do you want a story?
Yeah. Yes, tell me.
So he went to 7 or 8 interviews. In those days, they didn't have any money, and they spent the last money they had on a new suit and a new shirt. He went through 7 interviews to start as a junior comptroller in the Royal Household for the Queen Mother in 1960-something. And his final interview, Big M, you'll love this, he was told by the footman, you will go through several doors, they will open outwards, and eventually at door 5 or 6, you will wait, you will open the doors, Her Majesty will be sat down, you will take 2 steps forward, you will bend very low, it's Your Majesty, and after that it's Ma'am, and she will stand up and everything will be great. You're very close to the job. They'd spent the last few quid on his suit. This won't make you laugh, but it made him howl. And he said, I was very, very nervous, and the doors open. I saw Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, 3 or 4 corgis around her feet. He said, I did exactly what the man said. I took 2 steps forward, I bowed low, and one of these bloody corgis took off from the sofa, and how do I tell you this? Started shagging his leg, to be honest, in front of the Queen Mother, in his new suit. He's like that. Get off, get off. I'm trying to bow, and it was awful. He got the job, but that's an absolutely true story from Patrick Carl, no longer with us. One of the Queen Mother's corgis tried to make love to his knee in a new suit.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, not the only horn dog in the palace, is what I'm taking away from this story.
Oh, good line. That'll make it. Can we also talk, actually, talking about Andrew, just going back, couple of stories this weekend in the papers that both of the princesses' marriages could be slightly rocky. I'm not sure. I think it's Beatrice is married to, what's he called? I can never get his name right. What's he called? Eduardo de Mappelli or whatever.
This is the price you pay when you marry up. When you marry someone hotter than you, you've got to constantly be worried about this. I'm not surprised at all. I feel very little sympathy. That's why I date down. I date ugly, I date broke, I date poor. I'm never worried about the situation, you know? But yeah, I mean, how can these girls, these women, I should say, people get upset when we call them girls because they are women. These women are implicated in the Epstein files too, just in guilt by association, but they, were associating voluntarily with a convicted sex offender, and that is going to cause problems inside your home. When your entire world is flipped upside down, you no longer have the status that you had 3 months ago. Your father's been arrested. It's humiliating, and everybody is being looked at differently, judged, followed around with cameras. People are pulling out their cell phones, and that's going to create a lot of animosity. Beatrice is married to the Italian. He's very suave and looks like James Bond. She doesn't look like a Bond girl. Eugenie is married to Jack Brushank, who has very good links and family. And they're saying, the papers this weekend, for the very reason that you just said, that both girls whose relationships are under pressure. Now, we can't do anything, despite the story about the royal corgi making love to my father's knee. We can't do a whole part without asking you. Exciting news. Meghan Markle, superstar, ex-Duchess, heading down under. I mean, it won't be the first time she's gone down under, but can you tell us more? Yeah, that's a 90210 reference. And if you're a Meghan Markle fan, if you know, you know. Yeah, she's filed some trademarks because she's going to try to launch her lifestyle company in Australia as well. Australia was a great, a great audience for Meghan in 2018 when she walked around and whispered to courtiers, I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this, for just, politely engaging with the people that had waited hours outside to see her. The polling as of late, I mean, I think I just did an article with Yahoo Australia, and 90% of the people that replied, which was over 100, said they did not want Harry and Meghan to come to Australia. If you look at just YouGov, general YouGov polling, they poll close to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Well, I was going to say it's the same thing, isn't it? Both of you, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Fergie, Harry and Meghan, wake up and realise the public, not just the British public, most of the global public are done with your lies and done with your duplicity and don't want to know, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think both couples are very similar. I think they'll do anything for a buck, and I think that they jeopardize the British royal family, and I wish that King Charles would strip Harry and Meghan of their titles sooner than later, and I think it's a cowardly act to force Prince William to do that once he ascends to the throne. So hopefully we actually see that from King Charles, because that would be an act of leadership, and I think it would ensure the protection of the royal family going forward.
Couldn't agree more. I love having you on. Thank you for drinking gin, talking about corgis that make love to... Well, it wasn't gin. It's not gin. It's water. Very good morning to Amy Tarkanian, Republican strategist in Nevada. Is that what America thinks of our useless Prime Minister?
That's the first time I've actually seen that clip. I missed that whole one, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. Well, sadly, yes. We do have a president who doesn't actually just announce a red line. He doesn't blur a red line. He stands on them and then he follows through, and he follows through aggressively and hard. And so we're now at a pivoting moment in this war where he's given an ultimatum within 48 hours, and that's coming up this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And if you've got somebody such as the Prime Minister who's still waffling on which side he's wanting to be on in history, he's going to have, sadly, more of those segments done on him.
It's really interesting for me because, and I don't know anything, this is probably a guess. I imagine that Donald Trump is the sort of person that even if he disagrees with you, if you stand by what you believe, begrudgingly, he'd respect you. The problem with Starmer, and by the way, you should know that 70% of people in this country didn't want Britain to join that initial aggression against Iran. I wasn't one of them. I think we should have done. I think our oldest ally thing is really important. But I take that other people have a different view. The problem with what Starmer does, which is why Trump has such a problem with him, is he dithers and he dallies and he flips and he flops, and everybody knows that. 1 minute, I mean, this attack over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this, allegedly reports of a strike linked to Iran on Diego Garcia over the weekend. This is the joint military base that's caused so much debate. But the public wasn't informed here, Amy, for 30 hours. And then we discover that, oh, it happened, and now they are going to use the bases. And I think for us, I think Starmer, there's no clear, we don't understand. I know Trump is about as consistent as chocolate, but Starmer is, the great thing about that clip is, oh, I'm scared of him. I want to impress him. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? It's awful. I don't think, people say to me that the special relationship will supersede two men, and I'm sure it will, but it can't be any worse right now than it's got to be worse than it's ever been, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's unfortunate because, as I mentioned, we're at a pivoting point. And so when you have allies who are trying to walk a tightrope and still, play both sides to some extent, saying, hey, we support you, but we only support you from a distance, tell us how it is, send us a postcard. That's not going to come out well in the end. And you can't depend upon allies who are wishy-washy. And that's going to be a problem. Now, that doesn't mean that we need, 100% full military involvement from the UK.
Consistency is what you'd like
exactly.
from the UK.
It is nice to know exactly where you do stand and what you are going to bring to the table, so that way we can strategize and move forward.
Love to get your view on this. We read so much about Trump and we see the ups and the downs. I think late Friday he was saying this war is coming to an end. Late Saturday he's saying I'm going to obliterate the Straits of Hormuz, their plants. He came to power in America, let's do this fairly and in a balanced way, promising no war in the Middle East and a greater economy, neither of which has materialised. Are the public turning against Donald Trump in America?
Well, you mentioned 70% of UK citizens are unhappy with this war. And I will say that Americans also woke up to shock. Historically, you have presidents who will at least address a nation to try to get in some buy-in to what's about to take place and why it's important. And that did not happen this go around. And so we finally heard President Trump for the first time a few days ago when he was discussing the possible visit with China now being put on the back burner because of a war. He finally used the word, we are in a war. And I think, obviously we're not dumb. We know that from the get-go that we've been in a war. And this is something that is unfortunately going to take some time. This is not a quick fix. He has come in strong with Israel. And they are both being extremely aggressive. They are both coordinating, maybe slightly different strategy-wise, but the end is to eliminate, and it is to do economic harm to a genocidal nation. And
I get that, but
this is something that's not going to end quickly.
Well, there's the point. There's the line, isn't it? Because he made a big thing about there won't be any boots on the ground. We'll change the regime from the sky. And the reason there is frustration, the reason, say, in this country where people will go, actually, maybe this Labour government has got something right. It's not my opinion, but everybody is actually that Donald Trump. The Iranian regime hasn't crumbled. The people haven't risen up. And actually, is it going to be, Amy, another... God, you know how much I love America. Is it going to be another Vietnam or Afghanistan? That's the criticism, right?
Sure, and we certainly hope not. And so now you have the Iranian, Ayatollahs that they're saying that they're going to retaliate even harder if we do come in and take over the Strait of Hormuz, like the president is threatening. And so we are looking at, major economic turmoil. And even though we woke up in shock, we were not thrilled. We're not happy that we are in a war, as you mentioned. He was elected on No More Wars. We do realize as well, though, that this has been going on for decades, and it is a bit of a breath of fresh air to know that we finally have some movement on this in the right direction. But I just feel that the entire way of going about it was not done well to smooth over the public's concerns. And so really, if this is something that's going to go on for decades and we're going to send troops on the ground, that's what you need to listen for. That's going to be the key. If you hear that we are sending troops on the ground, then we know that we're going to be there for quite some time.
Let's go to Sean Bell, former fighter pilot. I watch him. He does his best. I've watched you do this analysis on Sky. You're like that bloke with the swingometer when they used to have the elections, Mr. Bell.
Morning, Jeremy. How the devil are you, sir?
Always good to speak to you, dear boy. What I love about talking to you about this is really where we're at without just to get an understanding. So one or two people, well, loads, asking me to ask you this. Over the weekend, we heard reports of a strike linked to Iran on a Diego Garcia base had emerged. It took the government 30 hours to say that. I'm not interested about questions about why it took so long. Did it happen, Sean? And should people be concerned about other reports that are saying that there are missiles that could reach the UK? You're the expert.
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously, I'm not based at Diego Garcia, but the cross-referencing various reports I get, it does appear that 2 ballistic missiles were fired towards Diego Garcia. One, it appeared, broke up before it even got to Diego Garcia, and the other one was struck by an Aegis missile, which is one of the air defense missiles, fearsomely expensive, very, very capable, and by all accounts, no reports of any debris or damage on the ground. Although I have to say, given that Americans dominate that base, you know, it might well be that there was something hit the ground, but we just never heard about it. It's worth reporting there's only about 50 British service personnel there. It's about 5,000 US military. In terms of the worry about the ranges, I think that was the most profound message that came out. You know, but before the war, if you'd read Wikipedia, you'd know that, you know, Iran's missiles could go about 2,000 miles. Well, Diego Garcia is well over 2,500. And one of the things that we have been reporting is it's all very well reading what it says in the newspapers, these range of the missiles. But I know that when I was in the military, Iran was trying to develop missiles that get all the way to the US, and therefore it's no surprises they have the ability to go further than 2,000 miles. The question is just how far, and the question therefore obviously arises, could they get as far as the UK? Eventually the answer will be yes. If it's not the answer, yes today.
Overnight, the clock is ticking. Trump, who on Friday said, I want to get out, on Saturday said to Iran, issues a deadline of tonight to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. We know, all of us know, that that waterway is so essential to to global trade. Oil, petrol going through the roof already. There were conversations last night, apparently, him and Starmer. We don't have boats. That's not happening. But I'm not going to ask you whether you believe he will do this, but the Straits of Hormuz, you would expect, would you not, some of the rest of the world, potentially some of those countries in the Middle East, to not be helping Trump, but be doing right by themselves and right by the global economy and trying to open this again?
Yeah, Jeremy, I mean, I think the problem here is that there's no easy military solution to open the Straits of Hormuz. Let's be quite clear. Although Iran doesn't have a credible military to fight the might of a superpower like the United States. When I used to war game this sort of stuff when I was in the MOD, I've played Iran in these war games. You know you're going to get pummeled militarily. You know that you're probably going to still have your Shahed drones because you can hide them away. The leadership's going to be in place. You're going to have your proxies. But the most important thing is you're going to have your foot on the throat of the international community by controlling the Straits. And therefore, having things like anti-ship missiles, drones, mines and fast patrol boats hidden away, they've had 35 years to prepare for this moment. And frankly, we will not be able to solve this through military means. It's going to have to be diplomatic. Once America finishes whatever it's doing, eventually the international community will have to start just talking to Iran and be creating a reasonable conversation to finally get that open.
Do you, as a military man, believe the reports, and this isn't in newspapers, I've heard this, that Iran's ability to withstand and fire these missiles is fueled by Russian help? Do you see that as a feature here?
Well, the trouble is, I mean, the short answer is I don't know, but you have to look at who benefits from this war continuing. One of the people that benefits, clearly, President Putin, because, quite frankly, if you look at the number of weapons and missiles that America is using in this war, it simply means there are fewer available to provide across to Ukraine, and President Zelensky has already been claiming that. In addition, a central pillar of our fight against Putin has been against his economy, making it really, really difficult for him to sell oil, which is how he funds the war. Well, President Trump lifted the lid of sanctions of Russian oil the other day. He didn't ask the international community, he didn't ask the West about it, and that apparently benefits Putin by about $150 million a day. So there's all sorts of reasons why an extended war benefits Putin. Exactly how he would contribute to this, I frankly don't know. But there's certainly Chinese are involved because they're providing anti-ship missiles, which are another key capability that are keeping those straits closed.
I don't want to ask you this from a political point of view. I want to ask you this from a military point of view. Growing up, we all know that America, the Vietnam stories, the Afghanistan stories. I think Donald Trump's on dodgy ground now because he said, did he not, that this would end very quickly. There will be no boots on the ground. Now there's discussions about withdrawing or that not happening. It just surprises me, I'm being completely honest, that wasn't taken into account, that the very things that you're talking about, that they could block the Straits of Hormuz, that they would have support from the Russians and maybe potentially the Chinese, wasn't taken into account? Do you think it was a mistake attacking Iran? Not politically, militarily?
Well, the point you raise is really interesting, Jeremy, because as a military guy, before we were ever sent into conflict, we would sit down with our political masters and make absolutely clear that we understood what the end state was, because what did they want us to achieve, and then whether militarily that was achievable. Now, the war in Iran is war game regularly. America would have done that. They're not stupid. And General Kane, who's the chief of the Joint Chiefs there, will have almost certainly turned around to Trump and said, look, this doesn't end well. It doesn't matter how strong you are. This does not end well. And yet it appears that President Trump has just ignored that advice. And I do wonder whether he thought that having gone into Venezuela, plucked Maduro out, and a few days later the dust settles, that maybe he genuinely thought that by going in, decapitating the leadership, and suddenly the Iranian people would all rise up, there'd be a regime change, and all of a sudden everything will be solved. Frankly, that was naive, but you've not heard much from General Kane. And I think when the history books are written about this, Jeremy, they will turn around and say this was a president who believed his own hype. But actually, despite America's superpower, it was actually the rather erratic leadership of the President Trump that actually proved to be America's shortcoming.
Final question, difficult, I know, but I'll throw it in. Where does it end in your mind, Sean? You're a military expert. Where does it end?
Well, you allude to the fact that US Marines are on their way. You know, boots on the ground is not the answer. That would be a disaster for a president that got elected on the basis of peace. I suspect what will happen is that he's got his hands so far in the mangle, he'll just declare victory, walk away, leave a trail of devastation behind him. And at the moment, it's Israel, I suspect, that wants this war to go on longer. We haven't got time to get into that. But I suspect he'll walk away, blame the West for not getting involved, and leave it to us to try and negotiate with Iran to get the Straits open again.
Let's cross, exactly. Fair play to. We dragged her out of bed, and the wonderful cameraman as well. We thank them. They're live in Golders Green. A very good morning, Samara Gill. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy. I'm good, but it's very tense behind me. There's a fight breaking out right now. It seems to be and I'm outside where the attack happened last night, for those listening. It's a Jewish man. He's yelling, "They don't represent us. This is a small part of the community." I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. We've also got a helicopter flying up above. There's hundreds of people from the community right here, just all surrounding me. Lots from the Orthodox Jewish community and other Jews just looking at as to what's going on. I think we've got some members of some MPs behind us. It's all kicking off again. I think tensions are really high here, Jeremy.
Hardly surprising, just for people tuning in. We dragged Samara out of bed to send her down to Golders Green overnight. 4 Hatzalah ambulances, which are ambulances belonging to the Jewish community, funded by the Jewish community, driven by volunteers from the Jewish community. And by the way, not just for the Jewish community, for the whole of that area. They were set on fire in what is an absolutely obvious anti-Semitic hate crime. And unlike last time in Southport, Starmer had the militia out in 5 minutes. Here the police are saying, yes, it's an anti-Semitic hate crime, we'll look into it. There is real anger this morning, Samara, amongst our listeners and viewers who are saying, as I've been saying, why is anti-Semitism not put on the same level as any other abhorrent racism? Because it is as bad and it never gets treated the same.
The Jewish people are getting it from all directions. Who could this have been? The IRGC people, the anti-Zionists, the far right is what I'm talking about. You know, Jewish people are not safe within this country. It's quite evident from what's happened here, and it's just devastating. You know, just last week I interviewed a man who was pushed in front of a car while walking out of a synagogue, and the guy yelled, "Die Jew." I mean, this is the state of the country right now, all while the Labour government's trying to put together Islamophobia laws. What we need is actual help for the Jewish community, not more help for the Islamists. And I just think Labour doesn't quite understand what it is. They're just trying to bag votes while there are communities suffering right now.
I agree with everything, but I'd go further. I think they know absolutely what they're doing. And what's come out of the show this morning is cynically, maybe this is cynical, that fundamentally almost everything they do, what governs their thought process is political survival. Wes Streeting is a prime example. He won his last seat from one of those independent Gaza announcing independent MPs by 650 votes. The Labour left know that they have lost that political ground to the Green Party because they don't mention trees anymore. They mention Gaza and Muslims and trans ideology. That's how Hannah Spencer won Gorton and Denton. That's what she did. But my point is this, Samara, if Starmer's government's disregard for the British people is so palpable that he puts political survival ahead of what's fundamental, that is a terrorist attack. If that had happened, I'm going to say it, and if I get into trouble, if that had happened in another part of this country, in another community, people will be up in arms. The way the Jewish people are treated is fundamentally and utterly, in my mind, disgusting. And I do not understand how a Prime Minister who's married to a Jewish woman is not doing more. I don't even know why we as a society are not doing more. There is this correlation between Netanyahu or Gaza and the Jewish community is wrong. These are Jews living peacefully in this country, paying their taxes and building businesses. I think it's outrageous.
There's going to be some sort of exodus. I mean, we're already seeing it. Many Jews feel safer in Israel than on these streets behind me, which is egregious considering we're the type of country that defended against the Nazis in the Second World War. I mean, do I need to remind the audience of this? I think we've slipped really, really far down into a very putrid sort of society whereby we're grasping at certain voter groups, playing sectarian politics, and having total disregard for the Jewish community. And I think, why does it have to come to this? You know, all those marches, the Al-Quds Day march, which I was just last Monday morning on your show talking about, that was 1 degree away from this. And now we see, as you said, I think it is an act of terrorism. It's being treated as a hate crime at the moment. But I think this is a direct act of terror against ambulances, which are made for the survival of Jewish people. You couldn't get more of a direct attack than this, Jeremy.
But actually, not picking you up, the point that's come out from doing this, and I didn't know this at 6 o'clock, is that those ambulances, funded by and driven by Jews, are for the whole community, not just Jewish people. That's why people are also saying it's absolutely unbelievable that we've got to this point. We're going to change tack. You can't do a show without this lady. We say a very good morning. I'm going to call her the Royal Angel. Angela Levin, a very good morning.
Good morning. I was wondering who you were going to talk about.
Yeah,
I didn't think it would be me.
We've only got about 7 minutes, Levin. Right, what we're going to do here, Levin, is we're going to throw a few things at you, and I want that acid tongue in full motion. Where do I start? Meghan Markle, having been dumped by Netflix, is heading down under. She's planning an Aussie cash grab. She said that this is where the future lies, but a local poll showed that about 90% of them don't want her anywhere near Australia.
Definitely not, and quite rightly so, actually. She's also such a sort of cheat because she got all these things done in Australia in 2024. So she's been planning this like she did before she left the royal family. She's got it all ready, pretending there's nothing going on, nothing's happening, and she's off. And she's got it all sorted.
Yeah, has she though really? When are those two going to realise, a bit like Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his odious wife, that everybody's patience is not only thin, it's over? Nobody wants her jam. She's not a duchess. She's not a member of the royal family. Do you know what me and my mate... Have I told you this before? Whenever we go to America on golf trips, do you know what we do in the afternoon? We watch reruns of Deal or No Deal. And she was box 23. Do you know that? With Harvey Mandel years ago in a boob tube. Fantastic.
Yeah, she's got yoga straps, pet feeding, gardening tools, bath and shower gel, jewellery, furniture, skin cast, podcasts. Well, she's going to teach people how to do a podcast. She was thrown off for that. She's just nonsense. She did that years ago. She sort of said, I'm going to do this. Nothing happens because she doesn't know how to do it. She won't listen. Is not telling anybody that she needs help. So that's the end of her. Next.
How long until he leaves her? Wakes up, the ginger one, and realises common sense.
That I can't tell. You know, that would be an awful thing to try and say. But he sort of adores her in some ways. When she's frightened, he's frightened of her in other ways. So it's very difficult.
Aren't all men scared of women? Isn't the man in your house scared of you, Ange? Come on, let's be honest.
No. He's quite strong.
Is he?
And I'm quite strong, so it works very well.
I don't want to know. Listen, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor over the weekend. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to sound rude. So a man walks his dog. Can I ask you something? I mean, I know that the press have been waiting for that shot because the last one was him coming out of prison with his eyes open. What does become of this man? He can't even go outside the front door now. I mean, we've talked about, you know, his mental health and that, but the truth is he's so indignant, isn't he, and so up his own backside, excuse the pun, that he still doesn't think he's done anything wrong. What happens to him, Angela?
Well, he will move again into another home when it's ready, Marsh Farm. But I think after a while he'll get his ex-wife back with him and they'll go off somewhere in, you know, far, far away. And I think that's better. They can't at the moment because of the war, but they will be back together because they're...
Do you reckon?
Do I think? Yeah, because they're the only two people who really like each other, you know. I mean, they don't...
What about the girls? I thought this would start. Lots of papers this weekend talking about Beatrice and Eugénie's weddings, talking about the embarrassments of their husbands. Kinsey earlier said that's what happens, Beatrice, if you marry a good-looking bloke, you're always going to feel insecure. They are tainted by association, those girls now, aren't they?
Yes. Yes, they are. And she had a man who you could see was after the royals, because I think that any man who drops his child very quickly from a previous relationship and then joins another family, I think, how can you do that so quickly? It all happened very quickly. And I think that his previous...
This is Eduardo, isn't it, you're talking about?
Yes. The previous girlfriend also was very kind and let it happen. But I think that he obviously saw he was on a good thing and jumped on it. And that little boy had to go with them.
I'm slightly worried about your choice of phrase. In his marriage, he saw a good thing and jumped on it. Finally, Prince William, we love you, Angela Levin. This is quite interesting for me. I've only got a minute. He sparks controversy this weekend after admitting he has a quiet faith. Good for him, being honest. What's wrong with that?
I think it's terrific, and I think that it's done. I think it's changed him because of Catherine, and I think that he's found her. He's delighted, and he's cared for her, and she has got well. At the moment, she's fine, and I think that has changed him. He feels more about God, and I think that it's a very good thing. And I also think that he's doing this because he is the heir of the throne, and King Charles is very much religious, even if you don't like what he's keen on, but he wants to let people know that he will be an honourable person. What I don't understand is that they're friendly with Dame Sarah Muttley, who actually is the one who said you can stop a child being born up to the...
I would only say this very quickly. What I like about him saying a quiet faith is he's not all shouting from the rooftops. I think you're right. She's Iron Kate. She and he are a formidable couple, and the sooner they accede to the throne, the better. Let's cross to America. This is brilliant. We do this every single morning because we love her, and she loves certain people. I don't think she loves me anymore. Kinsey Schofield, a very good morning to you.
Why would you say that?
You don't message me, you don't call, you just don't spend any time on me anymore. I'm needy.
I'm trying to be respectful of your small children, okay? You were on daddy duty over the weekend because your wife took her girls' trip. I'm not going to bother you during that time.
I needed bothering. 6 children and 2 grandchildren. I almost felt like when I was taking them out, you two, for the weekend, it was like a living leash, right? And I tried so hard to do everything so perfectly, and I went 50 yards to buy ice creams, right? And I came back and one had grazed their knee, another had been hit in the face, one was crying because sand was up their backside. Honestly, I actually have to publicly say, I don't know how, honestly, I mean, I nearly went to rehab Sunday night. I literally, extraordinary. And how do women... honestly, oh, that's a sexist comment. How do you feel, by the way, from an American perspective, that this country is so mad that we've given a transgender woman as the head of the Endometriosis Society, a governmental appointment, Kinsey Schofield?
Keir Starmer is sounding a lot like Joe Biden these days.
Sounding...
Under the Biden administration, we did the exact same thing.
Do you remember that story, Samara? The guy that was standing with... I hope I get this right. Kamala Harris, Tim Walz. Didn't he put
tampons? That's what his
tampons in the boys' rooms.
That is what his tagline was from the Trump administration. He put tampons. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kinsey, but he put tampons in the male bathrooms.
He did. Tampon Tim. God love him.
Why? Sorry, you two very successful ladies.
Now.
Why would you put tampons in a male toilet?
Because you're pandering for votes. I mean, he was clearly trying to pander to a certain demographic, and he wanted the liberal vote.
It's lovely to see you. Really lovely to see you. Fantastic. What should we start with? There's a story this morning. I can't let Andrew Mountbatten Windsor off the hook. He's got a mobile caravan at the back of his new house. Have you seen this picture? He's put an old mobile caravan. Was he gonna have? Who's he having round? Is there not enough space? This is brilliant.
It is. It's. I mean, we should give him some credit. At least he's housing the help. This is for the people that are working for him, because his home is no longer big enough to hold everyone. So he's giving them a mobile home. What I thought was the wildest aspect of this story is they're carrying in all these boxes as they're moving him into Sandringham. And they all say HRH.
True, I saw
Let
this.
it go. Let it go.
Let it go. What was that from?
From Frozen.
Macy.
You should know this, 6 kids.
Balamori. What's the other thing? Pokemon.
Oh, Pokemon's the big deal over here. We can't get cards.
I've got plenty of Why am I even having this discussion? This is a news channel. I'm talking about bloody Pokemon cards at 10 to 7 in the morning. I'll tell you one of the biggest gripes. I mean, you'd probably share this, both of you, but one of the biggest gripes that I hear from people about Andrew is, apart from the lack of contrition, because he's not one of those people, is, and the HRH on the boxes is absolutely him down to a T, is that actually people go, hold on a minute, I'm really struggling, and he's still got a chef and a valet. He might have him in a mobile home, but how is that? How is that punishment, a lot of people are saying, right?
I know. I've got a photographer friend who's camped outside Marsh Farm, where he's kind of... Farm?
It's almost as good as Gilboff.
Yeah. And he constantly sees dry cleaning vans going in and out, cleaning services. This man's living a life of luxury. He's absolutely in denial about what's happened to him and how his life has been destroyed in the public eye. I think that he's just enjoying sort of a life of bliss. I mean, he's not allowed to ride his horses. That's probably an issue, and I'm sure he's been slightly jaded, but I think he's
because he can't ride his horse, and alarm clock Brits are already 3 hours into the day. I'm not having a go at you, I'm just making the point. That's the problem, isn't it, Kins? That he just isn't, he doesn't look like there's any understanding of what everybody else might think.
He doesn't, but I think that the reason he has such a cushy lifestyle still is because the king's afraid of what he might say or do. You know, Sarah Ferguson, they can't control. She's over here trying to clone corgis, but he can control his brother, and he can shut his brother up. And I'm sure that Andrew knows where the bodies are buried too, and if he wanted to take the royals down, he absolutely could. And there is a dirty book publisher out there that would give him the opportunity and the voice if it ensured that if he ensured that he could bring some dirt. So I think ultimately this is just the king trying to keep his brother satisfied just enough to shut up and stay under the radar.
I get that, but in effect she then could say, could you not, that the king is financing, harbouring and looking after a criminal suspect.
At this point, yes. While he's under investigation, you can say that, and it's not a great look. But we'll have to wait and see what they come up with. I don't know if he'll be fully prosecuted for this.
He can't be. Let me tell you what, and I know this for an absolute. I think you said it to me, so I'm going to take absolute credit for it. All he's got to do if he goes to court, do you know what he's got to do? All he's got to do for the whole thing to collapse, like Paul Burrell, is go, I told my brother. Doesn't need to. Doesn't need to.
Because the king has to be his witness, and the king can't be his own witness, and it's just a nightmare.
But you see, that's the point, isn't it, ladies? A nightmare for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. To hard-working Brits, hard-working Americans is not a nightmare. It's a wonderful lifestyle. But yeah, he's been so pampered. Talking about denial, how can we do a part with you without mentioning the madam of denial? Meghan Markle has announced that having lost the Netflix deal, nobody wants to do a podcast and no person wants to buy a jam because it's seedless. No, I didn't mean that. She's going to return to acting. Are we getting back into box 23 of Deal or No Deal? She'll make my golf trips to Flower Island more exciting.
I mean, I'm going to correct you here. It's like, this is just, what's in the water? Because we had Boris Johnson write that piece that was like, Harry, please come back this week. And now we have Eric Roberts, the failed actor of, he's the brother of Julia Roberts. God love him. I mean, he's just not to Julia's level. On a red carpet saying that Meghan needs to come back to acting. The world is ready for her. I don't know what Boris Johnson, obviously allergic to prophylactics, but I don't know what else he's got going on over there, because nobody in Britain wants him to return, and nobody in Hollywood want Harry and Meghan either. Jack Quaid is in this new movie with Meghan on Amazon, and E.T. thrust a microphone in his face and said, how was working with Meghan Markle? I've never seen a man spin so well in his life. He avoided that question like the plague, refused to acknowledge it, was like, well, actually, I star in that movie, and then he lists his co-stars, and it was like, it was the most fun. So a very unrealistic headline from the Daily Mail. We love them, but clickbait, clickbait, clickbait.
So we're delighted to be joined by Claire Coutinho, the Shadow Energy Secretary. Claire, a very good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning.
I'm trying not to rage today, but it's just not happening. I am raging. Can you explain to me in layperson's terms? Do you see what I did there? That was very politically correct, wasn't it? So you've got this man who patently believes in something that he believes in, foisting upon a country that's skint an experiment that won't achieve much, will cost infinite amounts of money that we haven't got, and yet under the very ground that we own is something that can pay off all our debts and bring people's bills down. But even worse than that, whilst we're messing around going, oh no, we don't want to frack, we don't want to drill, why would we do that? That's appalling. And we cancel all these oil and gas licenses. The Norwegians, they're drilling in the exact same space, and this idiot Miliband then is buying it off them at more than if he took it out of his own ground. And I know that's a basic sort of description of what's going on, but the British people listening to this are going, hold on a minute, my bills are going through the roof because this is madness, this net zero madness. It's not about the environment, it's about the balmy, I think, ideals of one man, isn't it?
I mean, we're talking about the North Sea, and you're absolutely right. This is ideology over the national interest, and that's why we Conservatives are forcing a vote today to say they've got to open up the North Sea. When I was in government, I signed off Rosebank, I was legislating to protect licences, but Labour have come in, and because of their ideological view, they have decimated the North Sea. We're losing 1,000 jobs a month, and like you said, Norway last year drilled about 40 odd new wells, found 21 new discoveries. We drilled zero new wells for the first time since 1964. And why? Because the Labour Party would prefer to import more gas from abroad, more gas, by the way, with higher carbon emissions, rather than use our own. So our position is you should support the North Sea. We are in a gas supply crisis. We are struggling, as you said, for cash. We are taxing people up to the hill. They're taxing pensioners, they're taxing farmers, they're taxing businesses, they're taxing students, they're taxing people on £30,000. Instead of that, you could be getting £25 billion of taxes from the North Sea. So it's absolute madness for the economy, for the environment, in terms of our borrowing, in terms of our debt, in terms of our energy security, not to be maximising everything we can from the North Sea. And that is why we are forcing a vote in the Commons today to make them open it back up.
Claire, you're forcing a vote. Offshore Energies UK has warned that Britain urgently needs to produce its own oil and gas. None of it makes any fiscal sense. And we talk about ideology, and I hate to make it sound as basic as it is, but it is madness. There's no other way of describing it. It's almost kamikaze. It's almost, I refuse to use this. It is more than, listen, the Tories at the end, the British public has stopped listening. We don't need to have that debate. We're 18 months down the line. You are coming up with new policies, and that's why we're delighted to always have the Tory party on this show. But the truth of the matter is, you were giving out licences. This government is cancelling them. I would love, they won't come on ever, I would love to ask one of these Labour politicians, whatever you think about your ideology, you are skinting this country and you are going to be booted out of office because people realise as they, and I'm 60 and I could have told you this 2 years ago, which is why your party annoyed me so much. Every time the Labour Party is in power, we end up as skin to skin could be, and that isn't going to change. But it's this blind sort of obsession with something that is deemed to fail that I don't get. I don't get it at all.
And it's worth saying some of the biggest advocates for things like renewables in this country, Renewables UK, Greg Jackson, who's the chief executive of Octopus, have come out and said, this is bonkers. We should be drilling in the North Sea. It's actually not an either or. Look at somewhere like Norway. Yeah. They've got a lot of people who drive electric vehicles and they export a lot of oil and gas. And so they get lots of money into the exchequer from doing that. We could be doing the same. We're the only country in the world shutting down our domestic energy supplies. And for what? So we can be more reliant on other countries for our energy needs. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense even in terms of climate policy, because all of that LNG that you would be importing has 4 times the emissions of our North Sea gas. So it is ideology. It's not based on fact. It's not in the national interest, and they have to change course.
I mean, blatantly, they're not going to. I mean, somebody asked me something years ago, final bit, they said, so when you get to this net zero by 20, 30, 40 or 50, what do you get? Do you get a medal or something? Because it seems to me that at 1% of the carbon emissions in the entire world, everybody else is doing the things that matter. But they hold these polls, don't they, Claire? They go, are you concerned about the climate change or the environment? They go, yes. They don't seem to be able to appreciate or understand that this madness, and it is madness, is going to render this country completely bankrupt on the ideological altar of something that actually isn't proven to improve anybody's lives. That's the irony, well, the sad irony of it.
I think the thing that I would say, so when I came in to be Energy Secretary, I started a net zero reset. I said, we've got to worry about the costs. And the thing that I was really concerned about is if you are putting so many net zero costs on businesses that they shut down in Britain so that you're importing the same things that we used to make here from places like China or India or wherever it may be, and those imports have higher emissions because they don't have the environmental standards that we have here. What are you doing in terms of climate change? Nothing. You actually got more emissions in the atmosphere because you're importing dirtier products, and you've got fewer jobs here. So it is complete madness. That's why we've said we would reverse the Climate Change Act. We have to be sensible about these things. Of course, people want to protect the environment, but that's not what we're doing at the moment. We're just offshoring emissions to other countries and making ourselves poor. That doesn't work for anyone.
Let's cross to Westminster. Delighted to have this guest. Good mate. Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor Exchequer. Has he got a coat on? Oh, look at the poor bugger. It's windy this morning. How are you, Mel?
I'm very well, but you've warmed me up, so I'm fine. Thank you, Jeremy.
I don't want to give you the impression, Mel, that I am angry every single day, but I have to say your counterpart yesterday has caused a reaction on this station that I have not seen for a while. I cannot believe 2 things. One is to have the brass neck to blame the Iran war on increasing energy prices, increasing food prices, increasing oil prices, to blame it on that and Liz Truss and not be able to say we've messed up. We've spent too much on welfare, 407 billion, which we haven't cut at all. We've basically messed it up. But to then, and this is the point, Mel, this is what it's all about, to have the audacity to label what I've called on this show alarm clock Brits as rich middle-class people is so utterly irresponsible and disgusting. Because, yeah, you want to support the people on benefits. Personally, I think half of them should get off their backsides and work. I think we need to deal with that and have that conversation. But all I've heard from Mel all morning is people getting in their vans and their cars or coming back from a night shift, what I call jams, just about managing, saying, how dare she keep making us feel like we do everything correctly and we're at the back of the queue. There's real anger about it this morning, my friend.
Yeah, I think then that's absolutely right. And your point just at the start of what you were saying there, Jeremy, is absolutely on the money. She blames everybody else but herself. That's the problem. We saw that again yesterday in the Commons. Look, we've got inflation numbers out this morning which show that inflation has not been going down. Nothing to do with the war in Iran. We had the highest level of inflation last year in the G7, and the IMF says we'll have the highest level in the G7 this year. And that's down to what the government's done. It's taxed a lot of these hard-working people and businesses almost out of existence. Some of that's been passed on by way of higher prices, borrowed a lot of money, spent a lot of money, stoked inflation that way too. And you know what? There is something the government could be doing straight away to make things a lot easier, and that is getting these carbon taxes and these green subsidies off the backs of people paying these bills. It would reduce their bills by 20% virtually overnight. They should be scrapping the fuel duty increase plan for September to get the price at the pumps more under control. And of course, we've got all that oil and gas up in the North Sea that is not being exploited because of Ed Miliband's net zero madness. At the same time as we're importing a lot of it from Norway and other countries. So things that the government could do immediately if they just accepted the reality of the situation we're in and got on with it.
It's a really interesting phrase, actually, the reality of the situation, because if you do this and you're involved, we're all involved, if you do this as closely as I do, I don't understand if I tried to scratch beneath the surface the Reeves, Starmer, Miliband approach. They are cutting their own throats. They will never be re-elected. The British people, the silent majority, we've talked about the Tories repeatedly, I'm talking now about this government, the silent majority have made their mind up, and that isn't right-wing rhetoric, it's common sense, Mel. You cannot say repeatedly to what I call the backbone of this country, I'm just going to tax you. I'm going to make sure that people who come here illegally get more than you. I'm going to make sure the feckless get more than you. I'm going to make sure that everybody is better off than the very people I want working to pay tax to sustain my society. Thatcher was right. That's not what you do. That's not how you create growth. And that is not, and I'm not even talking growth, I'm talking about how people feel. I've never experienced the anger that we are feeling on a daily basis. Even, and the Tories, listen, people stop listening, we've done that. But the anger towards this incompetent government is out of control, Mel.
Yeah. Look, the big mistake here, Jeremy, that the government is making is that it's constantly leaning into taxing people more and borrowing more, which has created a weak economy. What they need to do is control public spending, particularly the welfare budget. They've got to get people off benefits and into work. And if you do that, then you can start to get taxes down, you can start to get businesses growing, you can start to get businesses profitable, and through time, of course, they'll pay maybe even more tax as a consequence, and you can get a better and stronger economy. But they've made all the wrong choices here, and that's why whatever Rachel Reeves comes forward with, we don't know yet because we didn't learn anything yesterday, whatever she comes forward with, I'll almost guarantee you she's going to borrow more money, which will make the economy weaker, or she's going to lean into yet more tax increases, and that is the wrong set of choices, and that's why people are really suffering.
Absolutely. And just quickly, so you're the next Chancellor, right? This is me, man to man. This is what I don't get. Even if I had an ideology and I knew my neck was on the line, I'd think about, you know, changing tact. Even Trump showing the signs of doing that. You're Chancellor, and I'm saying to you, we've got a £400 billion welfare thingy, and it's costing us £10 billion a month. But you know what, Mel? I can give you 800 billion if we just drill in the North Sea. You're going to go, absolutely. They are bankrupting the country on an ideology that doesn't fiscally work. It makes no sense.
No, absolutely no sense whatsoever. So take the oil. We've got two fields out there that you could flick the switch on and give them the go-ahead. That's Rosebank for oil and Jackdaw for gas, where we could be getting the oil and gas out of those fields within literally a matter of months. Now, the Jackdaw gas field could power 1.6 million homes. And yet, the way that Miliband approaches things, of course, is he wants to not have those things happen. He wants to effectively shut down the North Sea. Now, the supreme irony is that we're getting a lot of our gas actually from the Norwegians via a connector, where they are actually taking the gas out of the same seabed, the same basin as we are not exploiting. It is ludicrous. It's costing jobs, it's costing tax revenue, it's meaning more pressure on our public finances, it's damaging our balance of payments, it's making our imports more expensive overall because of that particular effect as well. So, you know, this is just basic common sense, and it's extraordinary that this kind of ideology has now got in the way of common sense.
Listen, just final question, brilliant. Do you in the Tory party, do you sit there sometimes open-mouthed thinking this is just pennies from heaven? These people are completely and utterly incompetent.
Yeah, what I think, sadly, Jeremy, is we've seen it all before. We know what Labour governments do. They typically go out, tax everybody. They don't understand business. There's very little business experience on the Labour benches. They always go and borrow loads of money and spend until they run out of other people's money, and they always see unemployment, for example, rising. That's happened under every single Labour government in history. Unemployment's now at a 10-year high, incidentally, and rising. We've seen it all before. It's very sad. And bring on the next general election.
The war in Iran and everything that's going on, and the sort of things that we hear on a daily basis out of America, nobody seems to be able to make sense. My next guest will make sense. So good to have you back. Greg Swenson, Chairman of Republicans Overseas. Good morning.
Good to see you. Great to be here.
Just back from my favourite city, the windy city of Chicago.
Yeah.
You know me, I have a job to do. Is he losing the plot, Trump? Because, and I'm just being honest, it seemed to be, it was going to be instantaneous.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't. Yesterday, in the pink tie, I thought, you're going to tell me he looked tired. He looked not at the end of his tether, but they've sent me a present. And I read something this morning that says that if he gets out of this, you know, with a promise of no nuclear deterrent and everything, there's no different than what was 5 weeks ago. Is there concern about Trump right now, seriously?
No. You know, the president is very unfiltered, and that's usually good, and then sometimes it's a little bit difficult to understand, and he also doesn't want to telegraph too much, right? You know, you can't really tell the enemy what you're planning, and so I think he's keeping his options open. It's difficult. Nobody likes war, and especially this president, right? So,
but it's difficult for him because he stood on a ticket of good economy and I won't do any foreign wars, right?
That's you know, there's no appetite for that in the U.S. right now, you know, from the left or the right. And so I think that, you know, he had to do what he had to do. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the stated goals of the war, he's actually accomplished them. You know, the Navy's been, you know, the ships have been sunk, the ballistic missile program has been not eliminated completely, but pretty much. You know,
but the Straits of Hormuz you can't get through.
That's
was that not taken into consideration?
Oh, no, it definitely was. I mean, I'm sure they game theoried everything and plotted all the different things that could happen. That's going to be a headache because that's going to take time and more energy from the military. And
you know Andrew Neil?
I do, yeah.
He wrote, being caught in Iran's trap is the biggest mistake of either of Trump's presidencies. I do not see how he can ever recover.
Yeah, I think that's a bit much. And I think that the president, you know, he tried diplomacy, right? I mean, he didn't just go in and surprise everybody. He telegraphed it, you know, moving the carrier groups to the Gulf. I mean, that was pretty clear. And
not because Starmer, it wasn't.
No,
just so you're aware.
But
we only had one ship.
Of course,
it's only just got there, I'm afraid, and it's all over.
It hasn't been a good, you know,
HMS dragging its feet. That's what he used to call it.
But I think, you know, look, he kind of drew the red line, and when the mullahs, when the regime refused to cooperate and refused to even suggest that they could, you know, dial down the nuclear program or dial down the ballistic missile program, you know, he had no choice.
I'm not... Listen, take this the right way.
Yeah.
I've said every single day that, you know, people should remember that every single major terrorist proxy in the world, Hezbollah, the Houthis, ISIS, Hamas, were financed by these mad mullahs.
Absolutely.
My point is... the sentiment might be right. I was very critical of Keir Starmer. I've been incredibly critical of what that's done to the special relationship. But I have to make this point. We were told it would be quick. We would be told it would happen instantaneously, and it hasn't. Does he now run the risk of an Afghanistan stroke, I know Americans, Vietnam? Does he run now the risk of having to withdraw with his tail between his legs a little bit, which would be a first for him? That's I guess, the question.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. Look, as I said, there's no appetite for forever war, boots on the ground. It might be inevitable. It's not going to be 20 years. It's going to be, you know, what are we at, 4 weeks now, 3.5, 4 weeks. You know, nobody wants a long-term problem there. And it might be that regime change is the only outcome.
But of course, the problem is they keep taking out the mullahs, right?
Yeah.
And the IRG just splinters and fires. And I've got to ask you the question, because I've been saying this, and people look at me like this. Iran's capability, is it not surely down to the fact that the Russians have been helping them?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they
do you not think that?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're helping with intelligence, but they're not really able to support them with anything but that. And we saw this in Venezuela. The Russian defensive capabilities that they sold to all of these, you know, these bad actors, Venezuela included, Iran, are useless, right? The American military has demonstrated they are the all-powerful. I mean, there is nothing Russian defense.
Why haven't they been able to beat the Iranians then?
Well, I mean, it's only been 3.5 weeks, right? And so, you know, they are devastated from a military standpoint. It's just that they're terrorists, and the problem with terrorists is they can just fire random missiles. They're sending cluster munitions to civilian areas in Israel. I mean, they are really sick lunatics, and that's the problem. Is it's difficult. You can crush the Navy, you can crush their. They have no defensive.
Is the danger, of course, that that ideology, the madness that you talk about, Greg, splinters out, and a bit like with Nazi Germany, you can talk militarily, but then in terms of ideology, it's a really difficult thing to do. How's America? How are your countrymen and women genuinely reacting to this?
It's pretty much down to party lines.
Same as ever, right?
Yeah, like everything else in America right now. So 80% of Republicans support it. Even the MAGA coalition, which is they're very much anti-war, anti-boots on the ground, they're at 90%.
Are they?
The country club Republicans, like let's call it Republican Party ex-MAGA, is in the mid-50s. And so, but collectively, it's 80-20 for Republicans and 20-80 for Democrats, because they hate Trump so much that, you know, Trump could announce like free ice cream and lazy Sundays, and he'd get impeached for it, right?
Would he?
So,
yeah.
I mean, so the Democrats have. They've got no credibility left because it doesn't matter what Trump did.
What about the midterms?
And they're siding with the mullahs.
Are they concerned, the Republicans, about the midterms?
Oh, definitely, because I mean I'm honest about it. We will lose the midterms. You know, it's very rare. Only in '98 Clinton picked up seats in '98 midterms because of the backlash against his impeachment, and then of course in 2002 Bush picked up seats because he had that tailwind from 9/11. And there was a lot of unity in the country. He was polling at 70. So those were two really odd moments. Every other midterm since Roosevelt, the party in power loses seats.
Do you think because he's not looking to be re-elected again, maybe he'll change the law, but he'll have done his 2 terms, do you think that he has been deliberately more radical this time?
I'm not sure about radical. I think
probably the wrong word.
I think he's actually just feels more confident this time around. He doesn't have
more empowered.
He had a lot of people in his administration in Trump 1.0 that weren't really on his team.
Well, this is really interesting. The woman whose name I forget, who we sat the other day, the Homeland Security Minister.
Yeah, Kristi Noem.
That's the first person in a year and a half, because I remember the first presidency, it would be daily.
A lot of turnover. Yeah.
So that's different. The special relationship, which we talked about, I mean, I am just as vocal as one could be about Starmer. Hideous.
Likewise.
The special relationship goes beyond 2 men, though, doesn't it?
It does. And
it's an important point to make.
I think it's sustainable, and it's a speed bump. And we had a lot of speed bumps with Biden. Remember, Biden did not like the UK.
No, not at all. He liked Ireland.
President Trump is really fond of the UK.
Just not Starmer.
And just not Starmer. And I think the Prime Minister, I gave him credit the first year. I think he did a good job. I think it's the only good job he did. Like,
do you know when I knew it was wrong? When they met the first time, and did you remember seeing Trump drop the papers and Starmer's immediately on his knees around his feet picking them up?
I mean, it was a little embarrassing, and that the whole thing in Scotland at Trump's club in Scotland was awkward because you know, I mean, Trump was in the UK. This is Keir Starmer's country, and he was like the guest almost. I mean, awkward moments. But I think the Prime Minister did his best or tried his best. I even thought Peter Mandelson did a great job.
I wouldn't say that.
That's another topic, I know.
Yeah.
But prior to no, but I mean, look, before all the drama came out, I thought he did a good job. He was very pro-American.
We now know he was a complete and utter charlatan. Can I ask you what Donald Trump, Greg? Love to have more time with you, my friend. Yeah. What does Donald Trump think when he looks at Keir Starmer?
Not much. I mean, it's horrible, and I think I think that the top or the peak destruction of Keir Starmer was denying the U.S. the air bases. I mean, it's one thing not to send troops and not to risk the lives of brave young soldiers, but to deny the Diego
wait till
Garcia.
The next money's owed by NATO, or you want some help. I said it from the beginning. Across to LA and say a very good morning to the hosts of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. It is indeed Kinsey Schofield. I tried to ring you, but have you lost your mobile phone?
When did you try to ring me?
No, you're missing the point. Have you not heard this scandal over here about the mobile phone?
Oh, I did. I actually heard it on the Jeremy Kyle show and at the crack of dawn today when I was curling my hair or trying to do my hair. I heard you guys talking about him getting his phone snatched conveniently right when they needed the evidence.
That's for you to say. I would never pontificate, but it's extraordinary. Allegedly. Oh, Kinsey, you've just... sorry, hold on a second. You've just taken your phone out of your pocket, Poppy. Is that yours or is that Morgan McSweeney's?
It's my work phone.
Where's your personal phone?
My personal phone got stolen on the way here.
No way.
Could you believe it? I know.
What, those messages that we shared?
Yeah,
they're
I know,
out
they're
there.
gone. They're gone.
Can you
now.
phone up and say that you are Poppy Coburn from the Daily Telegraph? Honest to God. Kins, welcome. Front page of the Mirror this morning, second sighting of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That's not the interesting thing. Such a hard life. He's driving with a detective. Do your duty. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has a duty to be questioned in the US about his relationship with paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein, a leading Democrat, Jamie Raskin, senator last night. That changes the game, doesn't it?
Well, can I first just say you and I, we got so much hostility. There was an article written over in the United States on Soap Opera Digest about how people were mad at us for being critical of Andrew for being spotted earlier this week. So now I'm tiptoeing around.
Sorry, hold on a second. Now, I'm going to have to share this with you, ladies. We got some criticism. You think I give a fat rat's backside? Seriously? Honestly? That tells me that certain people don't like questions about things that the general public want to talk about. What were we criticised for?
They said that we were giving Andrew a hard time.
He's a slimeball who lied to his family, lied to this country, and is best or was best friends with the worst convicted paedophile in the world. What more do they want?
I mean, you preach. I'm loving this energy coming from you. But so I was a little nervous to discuss another Andrew sighting based on the fact that we were kind of raked over the coals for our last exchange over it.
Well, I don't know where we were raked. If it was in America, I don't care. But I can tell you categorically that the people in this country genuinely are fed up going to work, paying their taxes, and still looking at a man who's got a chef and a valet and will not show any compassion or apology to anybody. That's the truth.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think he's an embarrassment, and I think he's a constant reminder of failure, in the palace. And it's not necessarily an insult to King Charles, although he could have handled it sooner. I do think that the Queen, during her reign, should have been more aggressive. And unfortunately, Charles is left dealing with the consequences, and that's Andrew on the front page of papers every day until we find out whether or not he's going to be arrested again or prosecuted for this. Unfortunately, this is going to be a sin that hangs over the palace's head until we get those answers. And I don't think this is going to be executed quickly. I think we're looking at months, if not years, of them investigating.
And it's just a dark cloud, isn't it? And we were talking the other day, weren't we, quite seriously about, what happens next to this man. For all the apologists, and I haven't heard any in this country, it's not done. You can't allege... Well, listen, let's make the point. We have to make the point. He denies all accusations. There's a lot of proof that would say that, that that's a discussion that has to be had. But, I mean, you sit here as a royalist, and I'm a fervent royalist, and wonder what will ultimately happen to our monarchy on the back of this, because people's opinions are changing and hardening all the time, Kins. They really are.
Well, and we're hearing from Prince William for the first time about his faith, his quiet faith.
I didn't know what that meant the other day. What's quiet faith?
I think it means it's something he's navigating privately, and maybe not as, not as blatantly as Queen Elizabeth and King Charles have done so. But when you're thinking about the head of the church, when you're thinking about a person in that position, which, King Charles currently is, it's hard to take them seriously when you have this kind of vulgarity around you.
Yeah, agree. Do you think it could ever get to the point where Andrew could be extradited to the United States?
I don't think so. I think he's going to always have really great lawyers around him that protect him from that space. I mean, the people that I've talked to that are barristers over there say I would not let him say a single thing, and that they would not let him step foot in the United States ever again, out of fear that he would be swooped up by the government the second his feet touch the ground.
Can you see that? Can you see a point? I was reading an article last night, and it sort of painted the difficulty of the picture for Charles. It was more sympathetic towards him and said that, he maybe is concerned about what Andrew could do, retaliation, if he ever did cut him loose. I think that's a really salient point. I do.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've discussed that. I mean, Andrew knows what was going on behind the scenes during the Diana divorce. God knows what he knows that we don't know, that wouldn't be a positive reflection on the House of Windsor. He could write a book if he wanted to, and he'd make an ungodly amount of money. So I do think that ultimately that is why the king is nervous about him and sort of still gives him almost nearly everything he asks for.
Yeah.
He is pampered over there. Yes, he's living next to a mobile home park now, but he has everything else he could ever want.
And I think that, on a serious note, is the issue with many people. Just people who perhaps have never questioned the monarchy before are saying, so you can be accused of something like this, and there is evidence out there, and people will make their own minds. And yet, apart from one or two titles, you're still living. And I think this is a really important point, because we're in the middle of a cost of living, as you are in America. You're still living in luxury. You're still having everything done for you. There hasn't been a sign of contrition. There hasn't been an apology at all. And I think that is what really, really annoys people.
And unfortunately, while this is still under investigation, could we see the king cut him off? Perhaps, maybe that's the next step, but we won't see the king talk about it because while they're under investigation, that would jeopardize said investigation, and the king's not going to be the reason that this whole thing falls apart.
I think that the pressure will come from British taxpayers who are basically, maybe have never questioned the royal family before, and they're going, right, so if Charles is basically paying for him, that means we're paying things. I think that the fear for the royal family is there will be an audit, in effect, a moral audit about how much are we actually paying. I think they will have to justify through transparency far more than they ever had to. Is that a good thing? Probably, but he's a real issue for them because he's a stain. He's a stain on the royal family, and I guess if you're Charles, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
I do not envy his position. And like I always want to stress, this is a man with cancer who shows up every day. We know he's getting treatment every week, and he still shows up and he's put on a brave face. And so I really appreciate him for doing that. And he's in a difficult position, but I wish he were tougher in this specific situation. And we also should stress, it's my understanding that Andrews told him, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Like he's saying these revelations.
And you think that he doesn't know? Because I can absolutely say this will happen. We did this yesterday. If it goes to court, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor can get off by simply saying, I told my brother, and it's his brother's court and his brother's legal system, and he can't be called as a witness. We will be beginning next week the run-up to the May local elections, and you will know from what I said during the election that we have very strict rules about what one can broadcast and what one can't broadcast. No candidates, people talking generally. That's a thing that has to be done in all responsible radio and television. But ahead of that, I just wanted to get a view of a certain part of the country. In fact, probably the overview with, well, he's just basically the main man, isn't he? The main polling expert in the whole of the world. Also politics professor at the University of Strathclyde. Sir John Curtis, good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Jeremy. How's yourself?
I'm all right. It was a nice build-up from me, Sir John, wasn't it, eh?
Yeah, well, I've learnt not to take too much notice to this flattery, Jeremy, but anyway.
Why not? What are you talking about? You haven't got your phone on you, have you?
It's on airport mode, so we don't get interrupted.
I just don't want it nicked, Sir John. I don't.
No, nor do I.
I don't want it. Oh, fair enough. Right, well, we'll go. That's another story. We were going to talk about Wales, which we'll start with, and then I'd love an overview. You've made no secret of the fact that you think Labour is on course for a humiliating electoral defeat in Wales, a new poll says. Tell us specifically about that, Sir John, and then what that perhaps means and could transpire in the rest of the United Kingdom.
OK, fine. So let's start with Wales. There's been the occasional poll in Wales during the course of the last year or so. The consistent message of those polls has been that Labour appeared to be running third, and that the battle is essentially between Pride and Reform as to who's going to come first. The thing that's interesting about the latest poll, however, is that it's the first to be done in Wales using what we've learnt to use, calling the trade MRP polls. So essentially interviewing a much bigger number of people and then using the polling to work out what the outcome would be in individual constituencies. Now, actually, Wales is going to have a new electoral system. It's not first past the post. It's a party list system. Basically, 6 MSPs get elected everywhere. Crucial thing you need to know about the system, where you need somewhere between 12 and 14% of the vote in a constituency to at least pick up a seat. And according to this poll, Labour across Wales as a whole are running at about 13%, incredibly low for a part of the world where they haven't lost an election since 1931. That, it has to be said, is consistent with previous YouGov polls, although other pollsters suggest it's closer to 20%. But if indeed it is around 13%, then actually there are parts of Wales where Labour are not going to get an MS elected. And that, by the way, could include Ultimatum Morgan, the current First Minister of Wales. So further evidence that in this, what was one of those places, Labour just didn't lose, that Labour is at risk of not just losing, but losing very badly. So also, by the way, are the Conservatives. According to this poll, the Conservatives are just at 7% in Wales and would have just one MS. And that is part of the broader picture. So here is one part of the UK where actually in the last devolved election in 2021, Labour were first, Conservative were second. Now, we've got Plaid first, Reform second, and both Labour and the Conservatives a long way behind. Look at the British-wide polls. They have between them, Conservative and Labour getting less than 40% of the vote, Labour at around 20, the Conservatives around 18. So you can see again why these elections on May the 7th more broadly. There's a devolved election in Scotland. There's a lot of local elections in England, including all the London Borough Council seats in London. It looks difficult for both of these parties, but of course in particular for Labour, because the places in England where elections are taking place are predominantly Labour Britain, including not least London, and that therefore Labour will potentially be on the line for losing an awful lot of seats and perhaps quite a lot of councils.
So much I want to ask you. I personally think that the Tories are starting to speak more coherently, but I believe, and you'd probably back me up on this, that the electorate will not forgive and forget that quickly. I think they are still suffering from the hangover of 14 years of, well, in the end, things that they said they were going to do and didn't. I don't think anybody could have possibly, Sir John, have imagined how quickly this government could have imploded and how unpopular he and this government would be. I'm interested nationally from... I've noticed that Reform, despite leading, have dropped a little bit in the polls over the last few months. I'd like to talk about that, but also the Green Challenge. Is that a flash in the pan, or is that something you're seeing that's sustaining itself across the UK?
Okay, you're quite right to point us in the direction of reform in the Greens, because insofar as what we once called the mould of British politics, remember that phrase about breaking the mould of British politics? Well, it's now looking much more fragile than it ever has done. But that challenge is not coming primarily from the Democrats. They're just flatlining at around 12% in the opinion polls. It is coming from both Reform and the Greens. That said, whereas Reform back in September of last year reached a peak of 32%, but thereafter have been running around 29-30%. It is noticeable in polls conducted this month, since the back end of February, that Reform have been averaging 27 rather than 29. And in fact, no pollster now puts them as high as 30%. Quite why this is happening is difficult to tell. Obviously, one possibility is that maybe some people are taking account of the association with Nigel Farage, with Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump's military action in Iran is not particularly popular here. That said, it isn't clear that, for example, that Nigel Farage's personal ratings have got any worse during the course of the last 3 weeks. So I think the jury has to be out on that. But certainly it is possible that the gains for Reform in May now not be quite so big as we were anticipating. To the Greens are now running on average at 15% in the polls. They were at 9% when Zach Polanski became leader. There has been a gradual increase. They certainly also got a boost in the wake of the Gorton and Denton by-election, although that may now be beginning to fade. I think the action for Greens, so far as May the 7th concerned, is primarily in London, because London is, Reform voters are very heavily those people who voted for Brexit. London, of course, did not vote to leave the European Union. But the Greens already have quite a strong local government base in part of London. They've always been doing quite well in local elections. And the question is whether or not their rise, and together with the fact that, it's Labour who are primarily defending in the capital, whether they'll be able to do well enough, not just to take votes off Labour, but actually to take seats. Now, I don't think it's very clear how that's going to pan out. It's quite a substantial challenge to the Greens to take a lot of seats off Labour. But frankly, if they were to succeed, that would be really bad news for Labour, because these days, London is meant to be Labour's strongest part of the UK.
That's nationally. We've talked about Wales. It almost gives the impression that everybody... I mean, listen, I've my own personal views, and you might have made a really good point about the Greens. I think they're hoovering up certain parts of the Labour vote that's disinterested, and whether that carries it through, whether the drop in Reform continues or it builds back up, whether the Tories are starting to make sense, God only knows. What about Scotland, quickly, Sir John?
In Scotland, it looks as though the SNP will remain the dominant party in the Holyrood Parliament, not because they've recovered to any significant degree from the 30% to which they fell in the 2024 Westminster election and lost an awful lot of MPs to Labour. It's because the Labour Party in Scotland has fallen away heavily, as they have done in the rest of the UK. Reform in Scotland doing Labour particularly damage, and that has meant that although the SNP are at little more than a third of the vote, they have something like a 17-point lead over their nearest competitors, and that is inevitably bound to translate in the constituency half of what is a two-part contest, is going to translate into an awful lot of SNP MSPs.
Just very quickly to finish, it's always great to have you on. Have you ever seen, I hate using the word, the diversity of a vote in all of your experience? We've only got a minute left. I mean, there's lots of different angles here, isn't there?
Yes, we've never seen our politics as fragmented as this before. We've never seen Conservative and Labour as weak as they are at present. We are frankly in uncharted territory, and none of us really knows how this is going to pan out during the course of the rest of this Parliament.
There's been all about phones. It's all about Morgan McSweeney. But there is also a rather chilling story out today. We've got 10 minutes. Junior doctors have decided they're going to strike for 6 days from April the 7th. That's after the Easter break, by the way, which means they'll get the bank holiday Friday and Monday off on 6 days, so that's a 10-day holiday. This is as they are now demanding another 26% pay rise. It will be their 15th separate strike in 3 years. I'm going to read this before I get Aaron the legend on. Jez, is it just me, or do the resident doctors just not look like doctors anymore? I remember when doctors looked like the professionals they were, not a student rag-week rabble as they do now. Dr. Aaron Ghosh, good morning.
Good morning.
You know how strong I am on this, my friend. I'm all for people being paid a wage. 15th strike in 3 years, 28% from Wes Streeting. many people who I think would have been sympathetic in the past are losing patience with a group of people who, to me, are becoming massively political and putting that in front of looking after patients.
Doesn't it feel completely out of step with the way everyone else is having to live at this moment in time, knowing that prices are going up, knowing the pressure that we're all under? And the junior doctors, resident doctors now, are, I think, really making a big mistake, and they are playing with the public faith. I absolutely think the public are not on the side of what this junior doctor strike is going to do, and it's going to cost £300 million per strike. And you can see we just can't afford to do that at the start of this financial year.
So that's 15 strikes. That's £4.5 billion. We've a health service that's failing on all fronts. You worked in the health service. We've talked repeatedly about this, and I believe probably when we were talking about this a couple of years ago, many would have had sympathy with the doctors. I point the finger absolutely at Wes Streeting, who gave them 28% and said, I've sorted the world's problems out, without putting any controls into what that meant further down the line. But I'm with you. You talk about people's patience. I've got people every day saying they should be banned now, like the army and like the police, from doing this, because people will die, Aaron, won't they?
Unfortunately, it was a 93% vote to take industrial action.
And but hold on. This is the BMA, which we know is political. I'm not asking you to be political. 93% of how many people? How many people voted who were BMA members?
Absolutely, and I was just about to say, however, what you look at is the number of the doctors proportionately that were represented were very, very low. I do not feel, and I still believe, that most doctors want to be doing their job. They want to be training, they want to be progressing. And this kind of action really stops all of it. It deters people away from actually going into the profession. The next generation of doctors don't want to see that they have to be sitting there taking strike action if they want to be part of that team and part of that club. Also, the senior doctors, I speak to many of my senior colleagues, they're no longer supporting this action. They don't understand. Once you've already had a pay rise, which they've had, once they've already been given better rights, so they now get paid better, they get better working hours, they get better payments towards their training, they get more subsidies given towards their fees. All of this has happened. So what are you now fighting for? Because you've had it, and you've been awarded it, and you're actually with a government who should be more supportive of the NHS, and you're actually still fighting. It feels completely absurd, and as I said, completely against what I think they're going to achieve, which is public support. I just don't think the public are going to support this any longer.
I agree wholeheartedly, and just looking at that footage, and without being flippant, that text that was sent, I can't help but agree with it. These look like activists. These look like students who don't like the fact that the pint of beer's gone up to £8 at the Students' Union. I'm being completely honest. This to me looks like, and we know famously that the BMA is very politically left-wing, and thus the value of the doctor. We said this before. Tell me your working conditions are terrible. Tell me your hours are long. No, money, 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 money. And you're absolutely right how you started this, and we can finish it, which is to say, you know, irrespective of the Iran war, which is impacting on the cost of living, everything is up, Aaron. Food, petrol, energy, everything. People, I call them jams, just about managing. They're hacked off. They're hacked off with people coming here illegally and getting more. They're hacked off with the benefit situation. And they're certainly hacked off with junior doctors who now give the impression that they were given a nice deal, more and more and more. I honestly, I don't know whether something has to be done, because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
What upsets me the most is their argument is that doctors are leaving the country and they're going for better pay and they're doing all of that. Our training here is world renowned. And if you want to leave just for money, then you're in the wrong profession, because you should never have done medicine just for the money. You should have done medicine because it was a vocation, it was a calling in life, and that's what you really want to do, which is help and serve your patients. And that's what all doctors should be doing. And I really strongly urge the junior doctors, if they are going to take this action in 2 weeks, and I can't see it being averted, that you really look very, very deeply at what you're doing, and will you be doing patients harm by taking that strike action? Because I believe you will be.
Let's cross to Hollywood. It's the final time of the week, which makes me sad. But Charlie Rowley, we love this woman. A very good morning, Kinsey Schofield.
I was Googling hard-on jokes, but you caught me in the middle of it, and I don't have a good one for you. I'm sorry.
Brilliant. Okay, this show's disappearing. Hinge and Bracket. Have you ever heard of Hinge and Bracket?
No.
There are a couple of old dears from about the 70s or 80s. We'll get a picture and put it up. Charlie Rowley and I have been called the new Hinge and Bracket.
I think it must be a compliment because you two are a delight.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's very nice.
Well, I'll take that all day to the bank.
It's completely and utterly wrong. Let's move on. Kins, good morning. We had a Prince Andrew moment overnight. We had Keir Starmer doing a tearful interview saying, I've done wrong and nobody is harder on myself than me. I'm always hard on myself, which everybody's just taken with a pinch of salt. Some great stories that you want to cover. She sent this to us this morning. Meghan Markle, once the Duchess of Sussex, once a woman who would go on royal tours, whose star has very much descended since she took to Montecito, is now, in her mind, achieving great things, but in our mind can be laughed at. We've gone from making jam and trying to flog that to plotting, this is brilliant, a very raunchy acting career. Can you tell, she joining OnlyFans, Kins?
No. This is a report, and basically, you might have asked me about this recently, about Meghan Markle returning to acting, and I think I said, oh, no. I mean, she's going to do this new Amazon movie with Jack Quaid. She's making a cameo, but for the most part, I thought she would consider herself well above that until I read Tom Bower's Betrayal, front to back. And there are reports circulating here in the States, one source telling an outlet, there's talk that Meghan's actively considering a return to acting that leads into more daring, even raunchy scenes, because she feels she has nothing else to try at this stage. The sense is that she needs something that will cut through and reestablish her presence in a crowded industry. And I'll tell you how...
with respect, to cut through in a crowded industry if you haven't got any talent, I'm being completely straight, she's going to take her clothes off? Nudity? Is that what we're talking about?
I think that it's fair to assume that based on the term raunchy.
Can you imagine the Duchess of Sussex in a movie with the boobs out? It's fantastic.
Well, first of all, you and I covered her twerking baby video. Remember how we did not believe that was real. We thought we were looking at AI. I mean, we've seen this, but let me tell you why after reading Bower's book, I'm convinced that this could be true. I think Meghan would consider roles that push boundaries, not just to reclaim relevance, but possibly to humiliate Harry, chip away at his masculinity and assert her dominance. You know, she's walking a fine line, I think, here with her career comeback, but provocative acting, it might be the tool she uses to reclaim the spotlight, but also I think it complicates Harry's way back into the royal fold. And I think she has proven in the past that she's willing to be savage. I think she's willing to try to jeopardize his relationship with his family.
It's really interesting, and I sort of flippantly said this in the past about how we'd go on golf trips, you two, and in the old days, like 10 years ago, with my mates to Florida, and at the end of playing golf, before we went out for dinner, you'd put on the telly, and Deal or No Deal with Harvey Weinstein, she was box 23 in a boob tube. It's not made up. Every day, Meghan Markle was box 23. And you sort of see the circle of life. And you wouldn't, if you were anybody in this country, I suspect, except for a strange few, you wouldn't doubt the fact that this woman so craves the spotlight and so seemingly has in her headkins that she can turn public opinion back in her favour impossible. You can see her doing anything, whether it's to humiliate him or because she can't bear not being in the public eye, but you wouldn't put it past her. Can you imagine a scenario where a past member or a member of the royal family by association is in a sort of semi-blue movie, to sound like my father? Extraordinary. Would anybody go and watch it? Charlie?
Well, first of all, sorry.
Would you bracket Hinge? Would you go and Hinge? Would you go and watch Meghan Markle?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't waste a dime in American sense to go to the movies and watch what she has to offer. And you know, look, most people, if they want to be in the spotlight, you know, the big iconic celebrities I can think of, Cher, Madonna, you know, they're just one name. That is their name. But she still wants to cling on to the Duchess of Sussex. She has to use this as a position of, because she is not just Meghan. If she was such a superstar, if she was so heralded, she would just be Meghan, because Meghan is great and Meghan is great. But
work for me, Jezza.
Exactly.
Just a joke.
Exactly.
Paula in Bexhill said, Meghan Markle going back to acting. Respectfully, I don't think she ever left. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Kin's amazing. That's a good. We're gonna have to follow that. You can't. You're so good. Sarah Ferguson. A lot of people saying that she is, a disaster waiting to happen. There will be investigations. Nobody's seen her. She must have. I read an article at the weekend. She must have good friends because she hasn't been seen. Somebody must be forgiving her. She's been stripped of the freedom of the city of York. About time too. Are they left with any titles?
Well, I have heard that there are rumors that she is with Priscilla Presley, her friend, Priscilla Presley, Fergie. Like that
Fergie's with Priscilla Presley. Uh-huh.
I've heard that Fergie's like her sanctuary right now is Priscilla Presley. So I don't, that is rumor. But yeah, I mean.
Can I show you something that will make you laugh? Do you know what I did this morning? I put on my blue suede shoes. Anyway, sorry about that.
That's so sweet. I love a good Elvis reference. Absolutely. But no, I mean, they're completely humiliated. And what titles does she have left? Grifter, grandmother, mum, I guess.
Dear me. Actually, there was a US lawmaker, this story emanated from your side of the pond yesterday, who made a direct plea to Sarah Ferguson to testify over her close Epstein ties. We know that Andrew won't testify. There's no way she will at all. This is a serious question. Is there anything legally, any pressure that the authorities in America can put on these two to testify or not?
I don't think so. And what annoys me about this is, like, can we clean up our own back porch first? The UK is the only one that's had the cojones to arrest anybody over this chaos. So why don't we focus on what's going on stateside instead of trying to get a camera in our face and trying to earn some headlines for ourselves to platform ourselves by going after former members of the British royal family. Like, nobody over here is getting into any real trouble. It's a little awkward, I'm sure, for Bill Clinton in aisle 5 at the grocery store. And I'm not saying he's done anything, but there are some very big names that are associated with the same individual that have yet to suffer any real consequences. And I think at some point, Conan O'Brien opened the Oscars with a joke about how the at least the UK actually arrests people for being predators. We're not doing that over here in the United States. So, like, stop trying to attract attention on yourself by going after Fergie.
Are you talking to me?
No, I love you.
I'm joking. I love you too. It's sad for me, but there you go. It's the weekend, which means I won't see her. But thank you so much, Kins. You're amazing. Great story about Meghan Markle plotting a very raunchy returning to acting. Just keep an eye on that. I honestly, can you not see her ending up in a soft porn film? I genuinely can.
Kyle.
Well, what sort of soft porn would be a bit of nudity?
First of all, go look at the pilot episode of the new Beverly Hills 90210 and see what she's doing in the front seat of a car. She pops her head up in the first few minutes. She's already done some questionable stuff on TV, if you know what I mean.
This segment has been the best segment of the week. Christian's open mouth.